Yeah. Some of the stuff on the cutting room floor of this program.
If they only knew, they probably know. They probably know.
I heard a hot rumor about the YouTube algorithm. Like if you don't cuss within the first 10 minutes, then they won't demonetize you. So we'll save all of our cuss words for a little bit later. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rules within the rules.
Hercules, 3, 2, 1. Hercules with the Buffalo Bills? Oh my God. Are the Bills a good team or not? Well, we know Seattle's defense is not so very good, but what? 44 points from Buffalo, 34 points from Seattle. Okay, Bloom, let's step through this game. We got to do the Seattle side first, and at 34 points, we had 24 of that in the second half of the game, 14 fourth quarter points as Buffalo kind of called the dogs off a little bit. Seattle surges back. This one was interesting, exciting. What do you want to say? 390 yards, couple of touchdowns, couple of picks for Russell Wilson, 5 sacks, by the way, so under pressure. DK Metcalf, 7 for 108 and a touchdown. David Moore, 4 for 71 and a touchdown. You saw Tyler Lockett get 4 for 40. So there's that. Hey, Jacob Hollister got 5 for 60 as a tight end. Nobody started. Travis Homer with 3 for 64 as a receiver and then 6 for 16 as a rusher. DJ Dallas, 7 for 31 and a touchdown if you had him in as a flex play. By the way, Russell Wilson with a rushing touchdown to benefit his fantasy day. So from a fantasy perspective, Bloom, this is a bonanza. You got a stack in this game or you start your Seahawks, whatever. We'll get to the Bills in a little bit, but the Seattle side from a football standpoint was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, we see Russell Wilson, Seattle defense bringing out the best in the opponent. Russell Wilson struggled a little bit, not for fantasy, but we'll see some divergence in quarterbacks for fantasy and how they played on the field in some other games. Wilson threw a pick in the end zone. And see, by the way, I love Russell Wilson, but he throws the pick in the end zone. Only his 7th interception. It's week 9. That doesn't deserve an only when you have 7 interceptions. It was his 2nd or his 3rd.
Right.
So this is what happens when Russell Wilson isn't underrated anymore. Only his 7th interception in 8 games. You saw Buffalo's defense make a few plays because they were really struggling against good offenses. So this is a game where they made a few plays and they were aggressive. A.J. Klein with a couple of sacks, including one where he separated Wilson from the ball. And that's the thing, is the difference in this game, even though we'll get to the Buffalo side and Josh Allen was almost flawless, were those few plays. And they were ahead early, Buffalo was, and they held on. It was never really that tight in the second half, but you just got a feeling if one or two of those things had gone Seattle's way, the defense isn't making plays for the Bills. This is a game we're talking about. It's another one of those crazy comeback plays. DJ Dallas gets a touchdown, but we did see more Travis Homer, including in the passing game. We'll see what happens next week for Seattle and Chris Carson. DK Metcalf. And look, Tre'Davious White had an interception, returned down to the 3. Another one, right? I mean, look at all these plays that Buffalo's defense had to make for Seattle to lose by 10. This is just maybe a blueprint for teams. You have to make some plays when Russell Wilson's on the field, not just prevent him from making plays. DK Metcalf really made Tre'Davious White look like a bug off a windshield on one play. DK Metcalf looks so good. Tyler Lockett got tackled at the 1. There's also a big moon ball that Russell Wilson threw that Lockett almost pulled in for a long touchdown. So you're waiting for the big game for Lockett. It's going to come. The tight end crew, you saw Jacob Hollister start to emerge here. David Moore getting an easy long touchdown. And that was the point where Buffalo maybe started to feel comfortable, and Russell Wilson made a long touchdown happen, and they had to tighten up a little bit for the rest of the game. So you have the Seattle team. I guess it isn't really a bad game plan, Cease, to go into every game and say, Russell, go do what you do and win it. But the defense with Jamal Adams, with Carlos Dunlap, didn't make it any easier on him. This also was, traveling east, a road game, and so on. But Seattle, we would have thought of them as one of the 2-3 best teams in the NFC. And Buffalo and Josh Allen handled them in a way that should really make them feel like this was a reset on their season, and they should feel good about where they are.
Yeah, and they put a stamp on this game that they didn't against the Patriots. And talking to some Bills fans last week, it's like, I kind of wanted that this is who we are type of game. Yeah. Well, that didn't happen against New England. It happened today against Seattle, and it happened because Josh Allen was nigh unstoppable. 415 yards, 3 touchdowns passing, 1 touchdown rushing. Stephon Diggs, did he have the Rick James cleats? Did I see that right? Somebody sent me a picture. He had the Rick James, Dave Chappelle painted on the side of his cleats. I was like, that's awesome. Stephon Diggs, 9 for 118 today. John Brown, get Smokey more involved, right? 11 targets, 8 catches, 99 yards. Good things happen. Gabriel Davis, we talk about him on the waiver wire show. If he's out there, 4 for 70 and a touch. Isaiah McKenzie with a touchdown. Tyler Kroft with a touchdown as well. So it works with 1 tight end. It works with Zach Moss, I guess, with 1 touchdown, but 9 for 18 on the ground. Devin Singletary, 2 for 1. And then 3 for 33 as a receiver. So that running back split was there again, just wasn't very productive. Josh Allen did it all.
Yeah, he did. Maybe that's the right answer, right? Seattle can't defend the pass, and let's call a lot of Josh Allen passes early. Allen, it's almost like the last month never happened, Cease. He's the whole offense runs through him. He's comfortable, very little pressure. He's making accurate throws. He's making valid reads with a deliberate, calm process in the pocket, occasionally using that ability to extend plays, occasionally using his running ability. Outstanding fantasy output here as we expect against Seattle's defense. Again, next week it's the Rams coming off of a bye. It's a real test. Do we trust Seattle's defense to be bad, or do we not trust Jared Goff to be good? Keeping that in the background, teams that are familiar with each other. These teams aren't that familiar with each other, but Josh Allen didn't make it look that way. And see, there's some other ways we can look at it, right? It could be just it's Seattle's defense making him look good. Better defenses won't make him look as good. It's John Brown being back. Smokey baby. All of a sudden, everything looks easy for Josh Allen with Smokey out there. He had a good game. Stephon Diggs, of course, had a good game. Gabriel Davis catching a touchdown here. And another one that the ref should have gave him. I shouldn't say the ref should have given it to him. Buffalo should have challenged it. So Gabriel Davis looking good. This 4th-round pick really paying off for this team and occasionally paying off for fantasy. And, this is like Justin Herbert. Isaiah McKenzie, you get a touchdown. Tyler Kroft, you get a touchdown. He's spreading the ball around, but also you're seeing good fantasy output for those bread-and-butter receivers, except maybe Cole Beasley. And what do we say about Cole Beasley? He's the struggle target. So... Right. If things are coming easy for Josh Allen, he doesn't have to look for Cole Beasley, although Beasley did have a really nice conversion in this one. And like you said, Zach Moss got a touchdown, but this team is maybe smart. Brian Dable smart to say, let's run the offense. We're going to talk about Kansas City. Very similar picture here.
Right.
Run the offense through the quarterback. Why throw away plays to get 2 yards or 3 yards on the run? So this team is feeling good. Also, the weather was good in Buffalo. Josh Allen, not a cold weather quarterback. Anyway, Buffalo, Arizona, another intriguing matchup. But again, Buffalo measuring up very well in this one. Confidence in their quarterback, confidence in their defense to make some plays like they did in the New England game. And as we head into the second half of the season, they have to be feeling good about where they are.
Well, feeling good if you're Baltimore because you get back on the winning track, 24-10 against the Colts. But earlier in this game, at halftime it's 10-7. She's like, oh, okay. And then would Lamar Jackson come out blooming? He was like 10 of 10 on that one drive, rushing touchdown, all that kind of stuff. So, okay. You get the win. It took a little while to ramp up there for the Baltimore Ravens, 6-2. The Colts are 5-3. Lamar Jackson, 170 yards passing, 1 rushing touchdown, 58 yards rushing. And then J.K. Dobbins, 100-yard game last week, 12 of 30 this week. Gus Edwards, and here comes the split, whether it's 15 carries or 12 carries, it's 12 for Dobbins, it's 11 for Gus Edwards, and a rushing touchdown. So that, that's not going to change. Hollywood Brown complained about his role on social networking, had a meeting with John Harbaugh, and then got 3 catches. So they're just not going to do it. They're not going to pass. They don't pass. That's not what they do. Nick Boyle, not Jack Doyle, but Nick Boyle, 4 for 46 in this one. Willie Snead, 4 for 37. Mandrew, 3 for 22. Not saying shut him down, Bloom, but certainly not trusting him in my line. Not set it and forget it.
Not automatic play, yeah.
No, not at all. So the Ravens get the win, but it just feels funny.
Yeah. See, I remember watching wrestling growing up. And it was always shocking when there'd be blood, right? I'm sure it was probably a lot of fake blood, but blood on the trunks. Whoever's the winner and the loser, both covered in some sort of blood. The razor blade hidden in the wristband or whatever. That's what this game was like. Buffalo wins, but they're bloodied. Indianapolis loses, and should really feel like, hey, if we meet again in the ring, the count might be a little different. Buffalo gets a defensive touchdown here. As you said with Lamar Jackson, he gets more accurate, I think more confidence. But what does that result in? Nick Boyle's worth more than Mark Andrews. Willie Snead is worth more than Marquise Brown. Let's give some credit to the Indy defense here, but this isn't a large enough passing pie right now without that efficiency to really trust Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews automatically in your lineup. Although, there's some people that would say, I'll take Mark Andrews as my tight end. Maybe this is a moment to try to buy Mark Andrews since we're talking about him that way. Next week they go to New England, by the way. So, another test at least for Lamar Jackson as a passer, as a runner. He does enough to salvage an average, below average fantasy day. Again, give Indy's defense credit, and especially give Indy's defense credit. See, after the Steelers, looked like aluminum foil, not a steel curtain against that running game. The Colts shut him down. They shut down J.K. Dobbins. They didn't let him get the yards after contact the Steelers were giving up. They shut down Gus Edwards, who fumbled at the goal line. So that's your place where the Ravens can say, hey, we could have made this easier on ourselves if that didn't happen. Edwards at least gets a touchdown here. But just a quiet all-around offensive day. The Ravens continue to be an offense that isn't even close to achieving what they're capable of with the personnel. No Des Bryant, by the way. Des was activated for this game. Fun story. They get a win. They win ugly. But, you're going to win ugly against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, even, watching Josh Allen, unless he makes it ugly. So it's progress, but at the same time, you still feel like Baltimore is not approaching what they were at last year, which is a problem when you have teams surpassing where they were at last year. Indy's doing that, but again, it's ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly with Phillip Rivers because that's just what it is. 227, no touchdowns, and a pick. Michael Pittman Jr., might talk about him on the waiver wire. A low percentage, but still 4 for 56 today. Zach Pascal, 5 for 55. Mo Alley Cox, 3 for 43. And then when the running backs, we're excited last week. Hey, look how Jordan Wilkins looks. And I guess Jonathan Taylor, whatever. And then Nyheim Hines, use him some more. Here he goes back to getting a couple of catches for 20 yards, 2 for 20. A couple of rushes, almost for 20 yards, 2 for 18. And that's it. And then Jonathan Taylor gets the rushing touchdown. And Wilkins gets 11 for 39. I know. It's Baltimore. But still, all right, Indianapolis, defensive aside, Bloom, it seems like they're still trying to figure themselves out.
Yeah, and this is tough because when they face a tough defense, you're not facing the Lions. What do they really have? They don't get the running game on track, which you thought with the offensive line with Jonathan Taylor, or even if it was still Marlon Mack. Baltimore's a tough draw, but the soap opera of this backfield continues, right? Jonathan Taylor gets a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor running hard. Oh, fumble. Oh, Chuck Clark hurdling over Phillip Rivers for a touchdown. Is Phillip Rivers like an old man, like a death scene? And then we barely hear from Jonathan Taylor after that. We talk about this pass offense again. It was going to be a small passing pie day against Baltimore. And when you're splitting it up between all of these tight ends, Nyheim Hines mixing in a little bit early, not much after that. Like you said, there's a little bit of something there with Pittman, Zach Pascal, etc. Still, this is an offense. So we see the pattern, right? Against a bad defense, this offense can look good. It can look functional. Phillip Rivers can make some things happen against a good defense. Phillip Rivers looks like a quarterback who's well on his way to deciding whether he wants to be a backup or he just wants to retire gracefully. And there was a bad call. Look, Rivers' interception was a bad call. Marcus Peters did not intercept that ball. I don't understand how it was upheld. So that was kind of a turning point in the game. Again, the Colts can look back at this game and think, even though our offense was stuck in neutral, we can compete with the Ravens. But more importantly, they have to compete in their own division with the Titans. And that's where they go next week. And it's kind of hard to know what to expect, Cecil. As you said, this team doesn't really have an identity on offense.
Our man Jason saying the Lutton era in Saxonville. That's right. Next game up, Texans and Jaguars, and some more of the Dolphins are like, damn it. Stop winning. 27-25. Houston gets the win. They're 2-6. Jacksonville's 1-7. Deshaun Watson, 281, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Will Fuller, 5 for 100 and a touch. Brandon Cooks, 3 for 83 and a touch. So like we thought, hey, these guys will work out against Jacksonville. They paid off for you. Deshaun Watson led the way on the ground, 50 yards rushing. Duke Johnson, 16 for 41 and a rushing touchdown. David Johnson, 2 for 16. Also, Duke Johnson, 4 for 32. So Waiver wire, here we go. Thought there might be more there for Jordan Akins. I think both you and I talked about him was what the heck flex, 2 for 19. So that's more like what the F flex.
Yeah.
I think we're past that 10 minutes, so we can cut on YouTube. Exactly. Anyway, sorry, Joe. Sorry, Dolphins, because the Texans got to win.
Yeah, we have to think about this. So there are 2 outcomes for the what the heck flex.
Mm-hmm.
The WTF flex, and we have to come up with something snappy for the other one.
Right.
Houston-Jacksonville is fun, even though neither of these teams are going anywhere. It was fun because a minute 27 into the game, it was 7-7.
Right.
Yeah. 2 offensive touchdowns.
Big ones.
Easy ones to DJ Chark and, of course, Brandon Cooks. Watson played with the lead, so he didn't have a big game. He still looks good. Jacksonville defense is still the one we want to pick on them in fantasy leagues. Watson just didn't come up huge in this one. David Johnson, he's hurt with a concussion, so Duke Johnson, not that efficient as a runner, but they really didn't have anyone else to turn to. Buddy Howell is a special teamer. We'll watch and see if they activate Scotty Phillips during the week from the practice squad to look at David Johnson's status with that concussion. Will Fuller also gets an easy long touchdown. So Cooks was a short catch and run, Fuller a long one, and otherwise your tight ends, and it was Darren Fells and Jordan Akins splitting what there was to go around for the tight ends, which was why neither of them were fantasy relevant. Randall Cobb not needed, kind of like Cole Beasley, that struggle target. If things are coming easily, you don't really need to have a lot of dump-offs, checkdowns to Randall Cobb. Houston's playing spoiler now. And look, as long as they have Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt getting his 100th sack on the other side, they're going to compete. Or at least they're going to compete as well as they can compete on that day. So they have a game against Cleveland. Again, when we look back over the season, if Cleveland makes the playoffs, it'll be because they beat teams like Houston. If they don't, it will be because they couldn't beat a team like Houston. Jacksonville couldn't beat Houston today.
Yeah, Jacksonville had Jake Luton, though. 304 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. The big one to DJ Chark, you mentioned, the 73-yarder. 7 for 146 and a touchdown. So we don't know what's Jake Luton going to look like. Oh, he had a rushing touchdown, too. Okay, that's a good solid day. James Robinson, what's he going to look like with this quarterback change? Fine. Still the same, grinded down. James Robinson, 25 for 99, 1 rushing touchdown for Robinson there. Nobody else did much. Tyler Eifert, 4 for 48, I guess. You know, he needs some tight end help. Hell, he did better than Mark Andrew. Visca, 1 for -1. Oh, anyway, Jacksonville was fun, Bloom. Just to see what Luton could do.
Yeah, goes out with that long bomb to DJ Chark to open the game and dinks and dunks a lot after that, but gets them back into the game to a touchdown, a chance to tie with a 2, but it just wasn't there. Ran in the touchdown. So if you had to throw in Luton as a desperation play or as your second quarterback, super flex, you're happy with what you got there. His ability to connect on the deep ball, maybe giving the coaches something to think about, because the reporting this week was they hoped that Luton would open up some downfield shots that Minshew just wasn't taking. So Luton's got the big arm, and he was able to make that happen. You're loving it if you have DJ Chark. And there's no give up in James Robinson. James Robinson doesn't care. He doesn't care what's going on around him. He doesn't care. On the Jets, he would be playing as hard as he's playing. And because of that, you're leaving him in your lineup every week. Laviska Shenault, hamstring. I mean, he's been on the injury report this year earlier, but you just hate seeing him leave a game with a soft tissue injury. Not Keelan Cole, but Chris Conley getting more of the targets after Visca went out. But again, it's all coming back to DJ Chark and to a lesser extent, Tyler Eifert making a few plays here. So we'll see. We'll watch this quarterback situation. It might be a week-to-week issue. For Luton, for a debut, it's enough for me to think Minshew might not get his job back if he can keep this going. He'd have to be doing that at Lambeau next week against the Packers.
Yeah, we'll see if that can happen. Didn't happen today for the Bears. 24-17. They lose to the Tennessee Titans, who are 6-2. The Bears are 5-4. Nick Foles, 2 touchdowns, 335 yards passing. The touchdowns, 1 to Jimmy Graham, 6 for 55 and a touch. Ryan Nall, the wrecking Nall, 4 for 35 and a touch as a receiver. I got a big fullback catch passes. Allen Robinson catching 7 for 81. That's enough. Anthony Miller, 5 for 59 in this one. Dave Montgomery, 14 for 30. Oh, okay. So Chicago, Mitch, please. Well, Mitch on the shelf because of his 1 carry from injured shoulder. So here you go, forward with Foles, and this is what you get.
Cease, forgive me. Let me make a little election analogy. All right. We won't go political here, but everybody probably learned a little bit if they were interested in about the ways that votes are counted and races are called or projected. The Bears offense at this point sees what? When it's like 17 points, we are projecting a winner in the Bears game. It's not the Bears. That's the way this offense is right now. Really. I mean, yes, they got 17 because the Titans let up when it was 24-3. Nick Foles is so bad. And the numbers were there. We'll talk about this with Denver, too. The numbers are there, but that doesn't mean he's playing well. All right? It's a good thing that Mitch Trubisky got hurt on that one run last week because I think we would have seen Trubisky today. I really think if Trubisky was healthy, you would have seen him today, and maybe we would have seen this flip, even though this team is in playoff contention. So, this is what happens when you face teams that choke away wins like Atlanta and Detroit. They can't run the ball. They just cannot run the ball. And some of it's David Montgomery having that very underwhelming burst in NFL terms. But you got to get push, and they're just not doing that. David Montgomery had just a day to forget for fantasy football. He didn't do anything, really. He also fumbled, which turned into Jeffrey Simmons, like way out by the sideline. That's why you take him, even though he tore his ACL like in the top 20. And Desmond King, welcome to the team. You get a defensive touchdown. And that was the point when you could really feel like, okay, the Bears aren't going to win. The Bears aren't going to win a game when they give up a defensive touchdown. They just can't. This was a game where you saw volume. Oh, and then, by the way, Montgomery goes out with a shoulder injury, which is really bad. Because for David Montgomery, if he can't rely on his shoulders to lead, and you're taking away David Montgomery's running style.
You're talking about what, the yards after contact leader,
yeah.
David Montgomery?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's what there is to David Montgomery. So there's a lot of volume. So because of that, Jimmy Graham has a good game. And by the way, look at Jimmy Graham's game log and look at like Mark Andrews. It'll make you sad if you have Mark Andrews. Maybe you think you got something if you got Jimmy. You got something if you have Allen Robinson. And Anthony Miller, okay, also had a fumble. Darnell Mooney. So, just wait. Cease one day. Darnell Mooney will be paired up with a quarterback who can harvest what he can create. Nick Foles is not that quarterback. That quarterback is not on Chicago's roster. Chicago's going to play Minnesota next week. I suppose whatever team wins that game might think we've got a chance to make the playoffs. I don't know how Chicago can make the playoffs with this offense.
Titans have an offense. It's mostly Derrick Henry. 21-68, though. You got Derrick Henry. Don't worry about it. A.J. Brown, so much fun to watch. 4 for 101 and a touchdown. Jonnu Smith. You could do more of this, please. 2 for 32 and a touchdown. And Anthony Firkser gets 3 for 19. Just give all that to Jonnu. And nobody else did anything. Corey Davis had 3 targets, no catches. Yeah. So here you go. Ryan Tannehill, 158 and 2 touchdowns today. So that's Tennessee barely had to do anything, and they win.
Just make a few plays in the passing game to go along with that defensive touchdown. That's all you really needed. So you started Ryan Tannehill if you're sad. You can't really fault him. I mean, if the Bears' offense was better, Tannehill was making some throws downfield to Brown and to Smith that could have resulted in more if they had to press more, but they didn't. Gives the Bears defense some credit for not allowing a 26-yard run later on to Derrick Henry, but they really kept him in check. If this was a game where Nick Foles could make more happen, or at least prevent more bad things from happening, well, really Dave Montgomery's fault. But the point is, the Bears defense did enough, although maybe the Titans offense would have pressed the issue more if the Bears offense could do more. A.J. Brown's just a beautiful player, by the way. Let's take this moment out, because there's not much to talk about on the offensive side here, Cease. It's very, very rare to see a wide receiver with the subtlety and nuance, almost artistry to the skill part of the position. And I'm specifically talking about the way that he gathers in the ball, his ball skills, because it's not just that he goes up for the jump ball like a power forward or something. He's making very skilled movements with his feet, the way he's body positioning, his hands are very soft, and then he just turns into a brute. He just turns into this monster, like a running back, basically downfield. Haven't seen many like him. Probably won't see many like him again. So even though the offense wasn't doing much, he did more than enough for your fantasy team. Jonnu Smith, it was 2 plays, basically. He gets one down the seam to like the 2, and then he gets the touchdown, thankfully. So if you play Jonnu Smith, you got something from your tight end position, something from him finally. It necessarily exhale? I don't know. Adam Humphrey's out for this one. Corey Davis, COVID's year. Not COVID's day or Corey Davis's day. Hopefully, I don't know if there are any fans in the stadium, so hopefully they also shut that down too. I don't know if either of these teams were on COVID watch. I think the Bears a little bit. My point is that Corey Davis, just when we were trusting him, Well, when they run into an offense that's underwhelming and they can make it 20 pass attempts, then that's a problem for Corey Davis whenever A.J. Brown is doing what he's doing to merit more pass attempts. Is Indianapolis that kind of opponent next week? Where Tennessee says, yeah, we really don't have to do as much on offense. Remember, these teams play 2 weeks later. So that's another thing where you think about, you show them everything. We'll see. Man, Tennessee's season has been a journey in more ways than one. But they win one they're supposed to win. And again, that matchup with Indianapolis for the AFC South, although there'll be another one in a few weeks. And the march goes on at the halfway point. They've already seen a lot of mileage this year.
How much do you want it? That's what it comes down to. And Kansas City wanted it today. 33-31, the final score over Carolina. And Carolina was in control at this one, 17-13 at half. And they scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to surge back and try to make a run. And they were back with Christian McCaffrey, 18 for 69 and a rushing touchdown. Also 10 for 82 and a receiving touchdown. So much fun to watch Christian McCaffrey. So good to have him back. Curtis Samuel, 9 for 105 and a touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater, 2 touchdowns passing, 310 yards passing, and also a rushing touchdown to benefit his day. Robbie Anderson, 9 for 63. That's plenty, especially in PPR leagues. Nobody else. DJ Moore, 2 for 18. Nobody else does much of anything else. Mike Davis did have a role, Bloom, with McCaffrey back. It was to catch 5 passes for 34 yards. So that's it. McCaffrey was back. Carolina put up a fight. They actually led in this game and then let it slip away.
See, so you look at these games like this game, the game against the Raiders to open the season, and some of the things Matt Rule is doing, some of the things Teddy's doing. This team has all the want to that you need. It's just lacking some talent, lacking some players to put them over the top. But they should feel really good about their showing in this one. And again, you saw the fake punt this time timed very well. And at a crucial moment, as you said, the Panthers really hung in this game from start to finish. And they had a chance to win. Again, just like against the Raiders, they had a chance to win. Teddy Bridgewater with a ton of fight in this one. There's a 4th and 14 to keep the game going, and he put his body on the line and made it on a scramble. A great fantasy day. So we're going to keep this in mind against Kansas City, who was looking like a better defense, but maybe Kansas City can bring out some good in the opposing quarterbacks after their bye next week. Teddy Bridgewater, and see, this is all stuff for Teddy Bridgewater's resume for next year, because the Panthers aren't going to be in position to draft a top 5 quarterback because they're competitive. And does that then allow them to deploy that first round pick elsewhere? Do they think about trading up? This is the kind of game that says, hey, Teddy's probably giving them a better chance to win than 10 or 15 NFL starting quarterbacks. And for fantasy, he helped you again, especially as a quarterback 2, a super flex. Christian McCaffrey looked great, not missing a beat. Mike Davis doing enough as a receiver to at least be a desperation play going forward. We'll see. It wasn't really splitting the work the way they described, but they also aren't leaving Mike Davis to rot on the bench like they did last year. Curtis Samuel making plays as a receiver, full extension adjustment catches, and doing things for Christian McCaffrey had one of those too. Doing things to really upset the order of these receivers, because Robbie Anderson has been an incredibly consistent receiver for PPR leagues. DJ Moore has been inconsistent, and you wonder if there's a preference here, Bridgewater for Samuel over Moore. And then when you add Christian McCaffrey, there's definitely a preference for him as a target. Where does Moore fit in? I don't know. I know that Carolina fits in as a competitive team. I know that Tampa Bay should not be overlooking them next week. I know Teddy makes them fun to watch. It's kind of great to see him have like a season start to finish to be the captain and the steward of this offense. They come up short, but they should feel good about the future when this team is better.
Chiefs side of things, Pat Mahomes, 30 or 45, 372 yards, 4 touchdowns. Yeah, that sounds about right. Most of it to Travis Kelce, 10 for 159. The rest of it to Tyreek Hill, 9 for 113, 2 touchdowns. Demarcus Robinson had a touchdown grab. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a touchdown grab, 3 for 20 for him, 3 for 34 for Demarcus, 5 for 14 on the ground. I mean, they just weren't running. They didn't need to run. They don't want to run. Some interesting play design. Like with the Chiefs, it's like, well, what are we going to see today? We're going to see offense, Bloom. We're going to see explosivo. But how are we going to see it? So I like to see some wrinkles from the Chiefs.
Cease in the chat room. What is happening with the Steelers? How predictable is this?
It's Mike Tomlin. That's what happened to the Steelers.
Yeah.
Like, let's play down to our competition, everybody.
Yeah. Let's give the bettors something to sweat
Wait
out.
for part 2.
Right. As you said, Kansas City, another team just not interested in the run, which actually is probably rational when you have Patrick Mahomes. As you said, some interesting looks on offense. I think on one of the touchdown throws, he kind of took the snap in motion, sort of, like messing around. Hey, Patrick says it's a good idea. Let's go for it. At least it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire on that touchdown. Le'Veon Bell, well, I'm not saying he's washed up or anything, but they're just not going to use him. He's being mixed in a little bit, not as much as Darrell Williams. So there you have it. And you can always use more running back depth in the NFL. And for Bell, he gets a chance to get a ring, but we're not looking at
a ring like LaShawn McCoy did, doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. This was a keep it simple. Kelsey and Hill. Why would you go away from them? And with George Kittle hurt, oh man, Travis Kelsey. I mean, how much is he worth now? So I just don't trade him. Do not trade Travis Kelsey. And you see Robinson got the touchdown. Hardman did a little bit in this one, but when it's that heavy to Hill and Kelsey, there's not as much to go around here. Just like Mahomes, sees Kansas City just cool as a cucumber. At no point in these games, and I think the 24-0 deficit to Houston in the playoffs really encapsulated their nature. Was there just nothing that's going to throw them off from their game? They're supremely confident in themselves and their quarterback, and they should be. But again, Teddy could have made another play or two on that last drive. They might have let this one slip away. They didn't, and Cecil, as we're witnessing, they're probably still the team to beat in the AFC.
Oh, yeah, of course. Steelers could be 16-0. I'd still think that.
Yeah.
Because of Mike Tomlin. Anyway, it's a Steelers show. Oh, wait for my Broncos rant. Got a couple more games before that. Giants over Washington, 23-20, the final score. Daniel Jones, 212, 1 touchdown, no INTs. The 1 touchdown to Evan Ingram, 5 for 48 and a touch. Austin Mack had 4 for 72 in this contest. Sterling Shepard, 6 for 39. Golden Tate, you're naughty. Darius Slayton, 1 for 6. So you're thinking, hey, more Sterling Shepard. Actually, it was just more Austin Mack. Okay, Wayne Gallman had a rushing touchdown, right? 14 for 68 and a touch. Woo! Had him as a flex play. So probably our most boring game of the day, Bloom. Let's get through this one.
Yeah, you're feeling good if you're an Eagles fan, huh? I mean, these are the contenders for your crown. Although I say that as the Cowboys are doing stuff. The Giants can run the ball. Well, Alfred Morris can run the ball. Wayne Gallman can run the ball. Gallman scored in 3 straight games. So let's see about Devontae Freeman. Next week, it is the Eagles and the Giants, by the way. You see Daniel Jones, Washington again, kind of holds him down as a passer. Sterling Shepard's going to get his 6 catches. Austin Mack, 51-yarder to open this game, down at the 1, or he could have had a touchdown here. And Evan Ingram makes a diving touchdown. Apparently the Giants turned down teams that wanted Ingram, so we want a first-round pick for him. These are the follies of having Dave Gettleman as your GM still. but at least he does something for this team. Although, Cecil, you wonder, this is that everlasting debate. Like, is it good for the Giants to be winning right now? Is it helping their team whenever you're making this decision about Daniel Jones versus one of these draft quarterbacks? And again, it isn't just as simple as how high are you drafting, because you can get some capital together and trade up. That's possibilities there. It was Darius Slayton. And again, like Darnell Mooney, there were moments last year that it looked like Jones was the quarterback for Slayton. Even this year, he hangs in to take the hit. He's got a big arm. He's sturdy, but it's just evaporating. And it's not because Darius Slayton can't play. Darius Slayton is good with capital G, hashtag good at football. But you have to wonder, how often are we going to be putting him in now? I mean, next week, you got to think that Darius Slay is probably going to be following him, or otherwise that makes sense as a rational game plan. Again, hey, the funny thing is, the Giants beat the Eagles next week. Now we start talking about them as a team potentially going to the playoffs. And when you're picking 21st, you're probably not, how's it going to go this year? I guess 19th, because of 14 playoff teams, maybe 16 playoff teams. The point is, there's this thin margin for the Giants right now between the playoffs and kind of an empty playoff trip, or having a chance to reboot the franchise with a new quarterback, which is very odd. 2020, very odd.
Very odd indeed. Washington, Alex Smith, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 325 yards. And I don't like watching Alex Smith play, not because of his play, but just because I'm like, please don't take a hit, don't slide, don't stub your toe, like whatever. Terry McLaurin, 7 for 115 and a touch. Started him, you're happy. Cam Sims, 3 for 110. J.D. McKissick, 9 for 65 as a receiver, 3 for 17 as a rusher. Antonio Gibson got a rushing touchdown, 6 for 20 and a touch. So there you go. 3 for 35 as a receiver. It's enough in a PPR league for sure. But there's just on a day when Alex Smith throws for over 300 yards, there's really not a lot here that you can bank on. 3 for 28 for Logan Thomas, by the way, from a fantasy perspective, outside of McLovin and a dash of Gibson.
Well, this was one where Washington had chances to win and stay as the credible competitor for the Eagles. You saw Kyle Allen go down. His leg kind of collapsed. It was eerily reminiscent of Alex Smith. That's why it was just crazy that Alex Smith comes in. Although, unlike last time, Alex Smith doesn't look overwhelmed. It isn't just a story where, like, make a wish or something, I want to play on the NFL field again. Alex Smith hung. And some of the things that helped him, Terry McLaurin, getting away from the defense for a long touchdown. J.D. McKissick helping a lot in PPR leagues. You know, Alex Smith's out there. That means J.D. McKissick in the PPR game. You did get a touchdown for Antonio Gibson going over the top after a nice run. You also had an early run for Gibson where he fumbled the ball, and it was football follies. I think that the crowd kept spilling over itself, like, through 20 or 25 or 30 yards, the ball kept squirting out. Finally, I believe, recovered by the Giants on that one. It was Cam Sims. Steven Sims was back in this game, but Cam Sims helping out Alex Smith with some downfield catches. It was Logan Thomas, actually, as you mentioned, kind of on the outside looking in, although a tight end this year, when you're disappointed by a 3 for 28 type game, then Thomas is still viable. And next we get Washington and Detroit, and Alex Smith might have some fantasy value. It is 2020.
Lions and Vikings, and I'd rather just talk about the Vikings side, mainly because of Irv Smith. But anyway, 34-20, the final score. Vikings get the win over Detroit. We got to start with Detroit. Matthew Stafford, no practice all week. No problem, except problems. 1 touchdown, 2 INTs, 211 yards. Here comes Chase Daniel, gets 94 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT in this one. Dammy Amendola, 7 for 77. Marvin Jones Jr., 3 for 43 and a touch. TJ Hawkinson, 5 for 39 and a touch. Okay, DeAndre Swift, 13 for 64. So this was just a weird week anyway, because of the Matthew Stafford situation. What's it going to do? No Kenny Galladay. And so it was a weird outcome for this one for Detroit.
Weird, except, you know, it was a loss that makes you lose confidence in Matt Patricia. In that way, it wasn't weird. It was very usual.
In that way, it's good if they listen.
Well, yeah, if they listen, right? Matthew Stafford, he got hurt, but he also threw a pick in the end zone, threw another pick that was suspect. And, again, I don't even know, Cease, what's the signature moment of the Matthew Stafford Lions era, but it has already happened. You know, the peak is well behind
Some throw
us.
to Calvin Johnson, probably.
Yeah. The point is, we're living in the past now, you know. DeAndre Swift's not living in the past. He had an okay game for fantasy, but he reaches out for the pylon. He's lucky he didn't fumble it through the end zone. Lucky. Fumbled it like the quarter-yard line. So, again, just like week 1, right? There was more there for him. And Adrian Peterson's not going away. Yes, Marvin Jones got a touchdown, but didn't have a big game. Saw him fight through tackle in the red zone. As you said, Dammy Amendola, the most reliable target, although TJ Hawkinson, very reliable for this one. Lions aren't going anywhere. You know, Washington coming next week, whatever. It's turn the channel kind of game. Minnesota, maybe, little, sort of, kind of, still alive.
I do know this, Bloom. There's just some players where I just like watching them play.
Yeah.
That's Dalvin Cook, no doubt. He's a special back in a system that's custom made for him. 22 for 206 and 2 rushing touchdowns. Also 2 for 46 as a receiver for Lanyap. It's my Cajun friend Brandon Stokely says. Justin Jefferson 3 for 64. Kyle Rudolph 3 for 40. Adam Thielen 2 for 38. So there you go. Amir Abdullah with a receiving touchdown. And then Irv Smith with 2 receiving touchdowns. Like, you could do more of that. You could. It's all about Cook. By the way, Kirk Cousins, 3 touchdowns, obviously, which I've recounted, and then 220 yards passing. But Dalvin Cook is fun to watch, and I get excited by thinking what Irv Smith could be if he was actually used.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because it was a comfortable win for the Vikings, very few pass attempts, very efficient in the passing game, but only Irv Smith, a good play in this one, and Dalvin Cook, a good play. Wow. Back-to-back weeks in fantasy football, this one goes in the books, you know. You just rub your eyes when you watch him because it's kind of a situation, Cecil, like as far as wide receivers, you know, when he's even, he's leaving. That's how Cook is as a running back. You know, you see him get a lane, and that's it. You know, and you have to love the way he's playing for a team that is basically going nowhere. But they did pay him, and I think they have his loyalty. You know, I think that you're seeing him at the very peak of his game. And you know that if you have him for fantasy, if you're facing him for fantasy, Amir Abdullah with the touchdown in this one too. So again, all these names coming back from the dead. The main thing we take out of this though is Detroit's defense is bad. Just everything looked easy against Detroit. And this is Matt Patricia. You hire him for defense. Detroit's defense is bad. And again, we'll see Alex Smith or maybe Dwayne Haskins next week. I don't know. Minnesota again next week. They go and get Chicago on the road. But if they can beat Chicago, look, it's 7 playoff spots in the NFC, right? One's going to go to the East. The Packers are going. Let's say New Orleans and Tampa. But now you have the 49ers fading. We'll see about the Rams. 9-7 probably get you that. They're 3-5. They're playing with pride. They're winning. And their blueprint is now starting to gel with Dalvin Cook, with the defense, modest success against the run. And, you know, that's the one thing I can say for the Vikings fans out there is this doesn't look like a lost season yet.
Lost season for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Some transitions just happen. The one thing about Garrett is he's there every day.
Yeah.
That's my Vic Fangio impression, by the way, which is awful and great all at the same time. I'd rather do that and just make fun of the coaching staff like Pat Shurmur being an aloha to fans in the media, basically. 34-27, Falcons beat the Broncos in our final game. We're going to recap here in part 1 of the Week 9 recap on the Audible. And when you look at the Broncos side, you go, wait a second, Drew Lock, 300 yards passing, only his second 300-yard day, and 11 starts, what have you. 2 touchdowns, had a pick, of course. Jerry Jeudy with his quote-unquote breakout game, 7 for 125 and a touchdown, and 14 targets. By the way, this has been here. This has been there the entire time. Remember in August when I said you won't regret how high you take Jerry Jeudy, no matter where that's at? And then a bunch of egg on my face, and it's always about me. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Jerry Judy's good. Drew Lock hasn't been seeing him, and Pat Shurmur hasn't been telling him where to go with the ball. Nobody notices he's wearing the wristband again, Bloom. Why? Because he doesn't know the playbook. And one, this isn't a great offense anyway. Like, who in the hell... Outside of Vic, the one thing about Pat Shurmur is he's there every day. Listen, he said that about Garrett Bowles, by the way. Who would ever look at Pat Shurmur's offense and think, that's a great idea? You know what? We need some more Pat Shurmur in our life. The guy wants to be a head coach somewhere else. He doesn't want to be here. And he isn't doing enough to work with his young quarterback, at least Rich Scangarello. And God bless him. He'd call stupid plays. Like Noah Fant end arounds. The very first play of the season last year was a Noah Fant handoff. Like, just stupid. So he didn't know how to call plays like in succession. He didn't know how to call a game. Why? He's a first-year OC. But with Drew Lock, he worked to his strengths. He told him what to do in his headpiece. All right? The secret's out. I'll just tell it. He told him what to do in his headpiece. And they'd snap the ball before 15 seconds. Whatever. I don't give a whatever. Because, hell, they do that with Jared Goff for like 3 years. So you're doing it with Drew Lock until Shurmur shows up with Shurmur's in his best years, minus the Chip Kelly years, because that was a Chip Kelly offense. That wasn't a Pat Shurmur offense. Pat Shurmur's offense is like 17th in the league. If it's hitting on all cylinders, it's average. Well, it's not average, Bloom. It's below average. Why? They don't run the ball. They throw Melvin Gordon out there. He doesn't do anything. He slips. He can't change direction. He can't create his own hole. He can't create his own space as a runner. Like, he runs into the back of his blockers, whatever. He can pass block better than Phil. Philip got blown up on a pass play. Philip also dropped a pass late in the game and they're trying to move the ball. It's like, okay, dude, they replaced you because they thought you couldn't pass block and catch the ball. And then you go out and cause a sack because you can't pass block. And then you drop a pass when you're trying to come back in the fourth quarter. And I think it was the second drop of the day, Bloom. Like, okay, yeah, replacing Philip Lindsay with Melvin Gordon was a mistake because Melvin Gordon's not good. But hey, Philip, you don't want people got a chip on your shoulder, world's against me. Yeah, you can act like that if your game's on point. But when you're dropping passes, plural, and you're letting your quarterback get sacked, like, okay, well, there's their reasoning. I know, from Colorado, went to Colorado, don't say anything bad about Philip Lindsay. There's so much going on here that the numbers won't show. The numbers won't show it. Now, they use KJ Hamler more. That's good. Hamler was 6 for 75. Noah Fant with 3 for 45. Albert O banged up in this one knee injury. Tim Patrick was back 4 for 29 and a touch. Stop complaining about every call you're never going to get, Tim. You're Tim Patrick, dude. Like, God bless you. You're Tim Patrick, and you've worked really hard to get here, and the NFL's your dream, and that's why you got that big shield on your bicep, and that's, the big tattoo. Like, okay, cool. But at the end of the day, you're Tim Patrick, right? They're not going to call that for you. Sorry, you're not Michael Jordan, right? These aren't the Patrick rules. Like, no, it doesn't exist. What also doesn't exist is any sort of plan. Watching the Denver Broncos is like watching the mother blanking Disney Star Wars trilogy, which had no plan. Let's just make a Star Wars movie and people show up because it's Star Wars. And it had no blanking plan, no clue as to what was going to come next because they didn't know how to do it. Oh, just slap Star Wars on it. It's a piece of crap, but if it says Star Wars, people will buy it and they'll come see it. The Denver Broncos. Same thing. Just put a Broncos logo on it. It might be a crap sandwich, but it's got a Broncos logo, so people will buy it. It's not good. The only one that wanted Pat Shurmur was Vic Fangio. John Elway wanted Kubiak. And when Kubiak and Gary Kubiak, God bless him, loyal as the day is long. But when you want to bring Clancy Barone back, like all the guys they fired, like, right. Where's my guys at? Like, okay, you can be loyal, and that's fine. He went to Minnesota, he's doing his thing, but like, okay, you play some Rich Gangarello who does what he can to, work with Drew Lock. Lock's got his own inefficiencies and ineffectiveness, and he throws off his back foot, and he can't read a defense quickly. He stays with his primary target too fast. He doesn't understand defensive concepts. Like, there's a ton to work out with Drew Lock. So is it Lock's fault or is it Shurmur's fault? It's the Broncos' fault because this team is inherently and deeply, deeply flawed.
Yes. See, so this is great. I mean, really, I think that this is your new podcast. I would just call it The List. And after every Broncos game, you just say, you made the list. Pat Shurmur, you made the list. Well, it's like putting your name on the SAT. We always know who the first name is on the list. Tim Patrick, you made the list. Philip Lindsay, you made the list. Right. You made the list today. And what you see is because this team is so bad, because this team is so flawed, you have all this garbage time. I think Blake Bortles will always be our quintessential garbage time quarterback, where it doesn't mean he's good, doesn't mean he's making progress. It just means that his team is playing from so far behind that he's getting opportunities at the end of the game. And, all the things Cecil describes are there on display. It's almost like Cecil can narrate Drew Lock's game for you. For fantasy, again, next week, it's Vegas Raiders, so maybe Drew Lock will have some fantasy value, certainly 2 quarterback superflex leagues. This recipe, it's not pretty, it's not good for Denver fans. By the way, another good one is, Cease, which of the Star Wars films best represents your team's season? Like, just ask the whole league, everyone, fans. Maybe that's the whole thing with the Star Wars trilogies. You can find, wherever you're at on the wheel, including the one with no creativity and no inspiration and a story that's barely worth paying attention to. But fantasy football makes it worth paying attention to. Right? I'm just rolling, man. You lit the fuse. Jerry Jeudy makes it worth paying attention to. Like you said, Cease. I mean, this is something that you were hinting at. Folks, if you're listening to the show every week, I'm here listening to it every week because I'm part of it. This should have been something you could see coming against this Atlanta defense. Again, Albert O a little banged up. Noah Fant still doesn't do very much. He gets a little banged up early on in this one. Tim Patrick catches a touchdown. Okay. Again, next week against the Raiders gives you something to think about for what the heck flex plays. KJ Hamler speed getting involved there. Lindsey Gordon, who cares? I mean, who cares? Like you said, Lindsey's not playing consistently enough. Gordon, we can already see. I mean, he's lucky to get that deal out of the Broncos. He'll be, if he was going on. I don't know if the deal will allow them to just release him. I'm guessing it will.
Probably not. But anyway.
Either way, he's what on the open market now? Like a 1 year, $2 million, like Leonard Fournette. Like a 1 year, $2 million back after what we've seen from him. He's not adding value. It was a wasted signing by the Broncos, which shows you a lot of flurry, fury, wind noise. I forget the way the saying goes, signifying nothing except some fantasy points.
By the way, I set Twitter ablaze, Bloom.
Ooh.
I don't care about social networking.
No.
And, it's just I don't spend time with negative energy, and it's mostly negative. I said, Drew Lock, energy flows where attention goes. Why are you even caring about what Colin Cowherd said about your dancing?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? And there's a way to answer that. The way to answer it is like, well, I don't listen. And yeah, I mean, I heard about it, but I'm trying to be better. I'm not. That's the player way to answer it. It's easy to answer it that way. But like having this dance off with Colin Cowherd, you fell into the Baker Mayfield trap, dude. You fell into the Baker trap, minus all the commercials. Falcons side. Now, let's praise the Falcons, Bloom, right? We can talk about the Broncos being not good at football and all these sorts of things. But Matt Ryan, tough, taking some big shots out there like Matt Ryan does, right? Did it in Boston College. He does it today. 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. Olamide Zacchaeus, 4 for 103 and a touchdown. Julio Jones, 5 for 54 and a touchdown. Brandon Powell, 1 for 9 and a touchdown. No Calvin Ridley in this game. So where's the ball going to go? Hayden Hurst, 7 for 62. Okay. Todd Gurley with another rushing touchdown, 19 for 53 on the ground. Not much else from anyone else, including Brian Hill. But let's praise the Falcons and praise Raheem Morris. Guys grow up, guys change, guys become more mature. When he was with the Buccaneers and he's partying with his players, like that was an immature young man. Now as an older man with his chance, his team should be undefeated with him. They've only lost 1 game, and that was by a point. So the Falcons are different. Getting their first home win in week 9, Bloom, but still different with Raheem Morris.
Yes, and that's the thing, right? Oh, well, maybe if Raheem goes 11-0 in the last 11 games, we'll give him a chance to take the interim off his title. Well, he should be 4-0 if Todd Gurley didn't score. And if Younghoe Koo could hit a chip shot there at the end of that game against Detroit. Atlanta, I mean, the thing is, I bring up Minnesota as a potential closing down the stretch number 7 seed. I don't bring up Atlanta only because after their bye next week, they get New Orleans, Vegas, New Orleans, Chargers, Tampa, and Kansas City, and Tampa. So not an easy road to hoe, but they're playing winning football against losing teams. Going into, Minnesota has Chicago, Dallas, Carolina, Jacksonville, Tampa, Chicago, New Orleans. So a little bit easier road for them, and we know how they play against New Orleans. We know how Atlanta plays at home when Julio Jones is in, how Matt Ryan plays a good fantasy day. It was just too easy. Well, they let up, or there could have been more there for him. Todd Gurley, it was a valiant performance by the Broncos run defense, missing a lot of good players up front. Todd Gurley got his touchdown later on when the game was basically decided. You did see some more Brian Hill again in this one. At one point in the game, it's like 8 carries for Gurley, 6 for Hill. When the game opens up, a little more Gurley to salt it away. Olamide Zacchaeus, open, deep, easy, long touchdown there. He was the fantasy star of the day without Calvin Ridley out there. You did get a Julio Jones touchdown, which is ridiculously easy. I mean, no one should catch a touchdown standing all by themselves in the end zone. It never happened. Come on, Denver. Brandon Powell also got a touchdown here. You did see Hayden Hurst. Again, when Julio Jones is back in this offense, things open up for some of these secondary players. And hats off to Raheem Morris, who will probably, his performance to get this team going will be forgotten, but he got them all on the same page. Certainly has the Falcons in a better spot than Vic Fangio has the Broncos.
You couldn't make a trade at the trade deadline for a better quarterback than Mason Rudolph. Like, seriously? Seriously. Oh, boy.
Bring on. Oh, Josh Dobbs is inactive, isn't he?
Okay. I guess people would like us to stick around, Bloom. And
we should just live.
And lament.
Should have known it, by the way, since we're still rolling. You should have known in a game where the Cowboys had it was laughable that they could even compete, that the Steelers would come out of this game, and there's still another half left to play, but at least with their pride hurt, maybe restarting the Cowboy season, and with Roethlisberger literally limping out of this game. It's the Steelers, you know. I mean, it's the Russian novel. Just when there's something there within your grasp, tragedy.
Reminds me of the movie Detroit Rock City. Bloom, did you ever see that?
I didn't. I love the song though, of course.
Yeah, by the guys, they're going on a road trip to go see Kiss, and like they're picking up hitchhikers.
No,
and the one kid says, "This is how porn movies start," and the other kid goes, "Yeah, but this is how horror movies start too."
Yeah,
so
part of the same universe.
There you go. Okay, I guess we get a sorry Joe for that.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, could you stop bringing up the adult film industry on the podcast, please? And thanks. Tia, thanks in advance. We'll be back with part 2 to throw up on the Steelers game. All that's coming up next. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible, everyone. Be back in a bit. Stay tuned and stay frosty.